Welcome back for our Week 17 mini DFS Christmas Day episode. We are going to chat the two games that are on this Wednesday, Kansas City at Pittsburgh and then Baltimore at Houston. And then we're going to build some lineups. We have a contest going this week. It's a $1 Christmas contest. Winner take all, again like last week, Judy?
Yeah, exactly. Winner take all dollar contest. So these are kind of fun. It's really interesting because we just talked about these four teams last Saturday. It's the same four teams. They're just exchanging opponents and locations to make it a little bit interesting. But I haven't really seen the NFL do a whole lot of that. It's kind of fun, makes it even for everyone. So let's kick it off with talking about the Kansas City at Pittsburgh game. Kansas City is favored by 2.5. Over under is 43.5. I believe this is the first game on Christmas Day. And for the Steelers, cornerback Joey Porter is out, which should help the passing game a little bit for the Chiefs. At least that's what I'm thinking. I feel like the storyline here is, can Pittsburgh keep this a competitive game? And that is largely relying on Pickens to me. What do you
Yeah, I
think?
feel
Can
like
they?
Pittsburgh was a bit different this last week, and the last 2 weeks they've just seemed not as strong as they did earlier in the season. And maybe I'm just pinpointing things too much to that Baltimore Pittsburgh game earlier in the season, and then comparing it to the one we saw this past weekend, where it was completely different.
I mean, we saw so many dropped passes this weekend, and Russell Wilson was making good throws, but the receivers weren't coming down with them. And I feel like a lot of that is on Pickens. So, will Pickens play? He's missed the last three games. If they get him back and they get a home matchup, I feel like this becomes a totally different game. For the Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco hasn't looked good since his return from that broken leg. Should we just go with Hunt? There's not a lot of options when we start looking at four quarterbacks, kind of six running backs, and then the mystery of wide receivers that we're going to get to.
Yeah. Because on the wide receiver side, we get Hollywood Brown.
We do. And Hollywood Brown had a great game last week. They didn't ease him back in. He had 8 targets, 5 catches. He did look good in that role. And Xavier Worthy left the game for a brief period of time, but did return. And Kansas City can lock up the AFC and get their bye if they get a win this week. Everyone's kind of cheap too on the slate. So I feel Hollywood Brown at 4,500 is just a bargain that I've got to take a chance on. Hunt at 5,200. There's not a lot that are on here that are super expensive. So you can really pay for your pieces that you want and then fill in with the other ones because the pricing is so good. What about the Steelers running backs? Do you like either Jalen Warren or Najee Harris?
It's funny, I was going to ask you the same thing. I'm a little concerned with Najee Harris just because his snap count has significantly declined in the last 2 weeks by 50% compared to prior to that. And we are seeing Jalen Warren take more snaps and also have some receiving points as well. So as much as I want to go to Najee Harris based on prior to the last 2 week history, I'm a little concerned just recent trends.
Yeah, I'm concerned about recent trends. And Arthur Smith, he coached the Falcons last year and drove me crazy. I never knew if he was actually going to run Bijan Robinson or not. And so Arthur Smith and I are not friends. He drives me mad. And last week, he gave it to Cordell Patterson. He just loves Cordell Patterson. He took him from the Falcons with him to the Steelers, and he drives me crazy using Cordell Patterson at the goal line.
Well, should we chat about Baltimore at Houston?
Yeah, Tank Dell's gone.
Yep.
Mm, puts it all on
Baltimore's
Nico Collins.
Baltimore's only favored by 4.
It is surprising how competitive Vegas thinks this game is going to be. They've got it over under a 47 and Baltimore by 4, which is really a 7-point swing if we want to think about it because it is in Houston. Can Houston keep this game competitive? I don't know. That's going to come down to how creative they get. And I feel like that's going to involve using Dalton Schultz more and more, which we saw happen when Tank Dell went out. He knows this offense, and the more that they can get him involved in that passing game, then the better off they're going to be. They've also got to take the pressure off of Nico Collins because otherwise Baltimore can just cover him and know that that's where it's going to go.
What do you think of any of the other Houston wide receivers? Do you think we could find any? Is it worth looking at any of them even? I know
I
this is only a 2 game
Yeah, we're still
slate.
trying to figure out if Mechie is going to be healthy enough to play. They just signed Deontay Johnson. I don't know that, I mean, he's not somebody I'm going to put in DFS after 2 days, although he may be super motivated to play against the team he didn't want to play for. So that's kind of an interesting revenge scenario. CJ Stroud hasn't had a 20 plus fantasy point week since week 5. Do you want to play Mixon? I mean, the
I-
Ravens give up points, but
Not to rushing yards, really.
yeah, that's true. So we've got to decide
Yeah.
who do we want to pay for here, and
I feel like Nico's gonna be the only person from my side, or from my vantage point of the Houston side that I'd really want to pick up. But this is definitely, let's chat Baltimore because maybe I'll balance out a little bit.
so the problem with Baltimore is Lamar Jackson is $1,500 more than either of the other 3 quarterbacks. So I can't really see needing to pay for Lamar Jackson unless I get bought into this being a very competitive shoot 'em out score game, and I don't see that. Love Derrick Henry. I'm not real sure I can buy into the Texans being able to stop Derrick Henry, and we didn't see him get stopped last week. So I'm pretty happy paying my 8,200 for Derrick Henry and letting Lamar go. How about you?
And at that point, you're the storyline of Houston not keeping it competitive. They Baltimore then has no pressure to throw the ball. They can just run it, and running takes more time than throwing to move it down the field, so they'll want to run it.
They'll want to run it. There's less danger. You run more time off the clock. All of those things. Baltimore is still battling Pittsburgh for the division. They will know when this game starts, obviously, if Pittsburgh won the earlier matchup. And the Texans aren't really playing for much. They've already clinched their division. They will get a home game that first weekend of the playoffs. I guess they're playing for seeding a little bit, but that's about it. All right. So, who do you want to stack? Which game do you feel is going to be the most competitive?
Oh, I don't know. This
All
is
right,
one
so
I've been,
I
yeah, I'll let you pick the stack. I've been struggling to figure out which one I think is not going to be
it's so
lower
funny. So
scoring.
last weekend, Quentin wanted to go Russell Wilson because he was the cheapest, and I didn't. And now I want to go Russell Wilson. So I think they're going to get George Pickens back. I want to stack Russell Wilson with George Pickens because they're at home. It's Christmas Day. I think they're going to be super, super motivated. We'll put those two in there. Now I'm going to add in Derrick Henry because I want Derrick Henry. Now we have to decide, do we think that Mixon can be competitive? Do you like Isaiah Pacheco, Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, or Kareem Hunt? We've got one more running back in there, and we need to slot in one of those. And I'm not really sure that Mixon is going to look that good against the Ravens. That's not the matchup that I think I want to pay up for. So I'm really buying into one of the other 3. And I'm kind of off Pacheco as well, since he hasn't looked real well on top of that. So now we're boiling down to Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, or Kareem Hunt. I lane Kareem Hunt.
I I'm with you there. I'm leaning Kareem Hunt as well. I think you
Now we
could
need,
do Jalen Warren if
I
you
think
want to
you
be
could as
different
well.
and risky.
Yeah, I definitely could go in Jalen Warren and get on that side as well. Now we get to pick 2 more wide receivers, and I look at Nico Collins. If they are going to be competitive, then I would have gone Nico Collins, but Nico can still support a lot of the passing. I feel like on the Texans side, we're either picking Nico or Dalton Schultz. I have a really hard time buying into both of them. Do you have a preference?
I buy into Collins more.
To
To Nico
Nico.
Collin. Yeah.
All right, we'll slot Nico in there. We'll come back for, well, we still have a flex as well. How about Hollywood Brown?
I
He is
definitely
4,500. I think he is a bargain on this slate at 4,500. So let's put him in there. Now we have to pick a tight end. Travis Kelsey, Mark Andrews, Dalton Schultz, Pat Fryermuth, Isaiah Likely, or Noah Gray. That's what it comes down to. And there's $2,000 range from Kelsey to Noah Gray. All of them are good tight ends. I feel like all of them are going to get points. I would lean, since we're already doing the Russell Wilson stack, I'd probably go Fryermuth here. How do you feel about him?
yeah, I could see that being a good call. I also like Mark Andrews. He's gotten a touchdown in the last couple of games, and it seems like that connection with Lamar Jackson has been really strong. I know they're not we're not expecting them to throw the ball a lot, but I do like seeing that recent trend of consistent touchdowns.
Yeah, I do too. I just think Freiermuth is going to get a little bit more usage. Or that's the storyline that I'm telling
So,
myself, that the Steelers are going to be behind and trying to catch up in this game, or at least competitive. So now we have to pick a defense. We can spend all the way up. There's only $600 difference from the Ravens to the Texans, and I feel like the Ravens have the better matchup for defensively here.
yeah, I definitely agree
All right.
there.
Now we need a 4,600 or less, preferably wide receiver, that we're going to slot in for our slot. If we're all in on the Steelers, then it's Calvin Austin the third, or we could go Robert Woods down in Houston. But we also have Nico Collins sitting in there. But it's a small slate, so it's really, who are we picking here that could potentially pay for themselves? I'm still leaning Calvin Austin.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't see.
Could
I could do Mechie. I'd want to know more information, and I just that questionable tag makes me nervous. So I agree.
Yeah,
I like.
I I'd probably go Woods today. I mean, this is Monday, so if I had to make the decision today, I'd probably go Woods over Mechie, but I don't. I can pick Calvin Austin the third, and we'll go with him. So Pickens is our only questionable one that we really need to get a feel for before Wednesday when this kicks off.
And we have a good feeling about that.
Yeah, so I'm going to enter it. We're good.
Well, that wraps us up for our Christmas Day DFS mini episode. Check out the links in the description where you can enter our $1 Christmas Day DFS contest. Winner take all. Can't wait to play, and Merry Christmas. Enjoy the football
Merry
this week.
Christmas. Happy holidays. Good luck in your fantasy championships and DFS.